Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Bernette B05 Academy. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get started sewing with this machine. Now to start out with, notice that your needle plate has these lines here, so you can get a nice 5/8 inch seam allowance by putting your fabric right up to the edge, right up to that line, and the distance between the needle, the stitching line, and the edge of the fabric is going to be 5/8 inch. But what's important is the settings on your machine. You want a center needle position. Here's your needle position dial. Notice it's right in the center. If you have it this way, it's going to be off to the right, and this way off to the left. So we want it in the middle. Also for straight stitching, you want to have your stitch width dial on 0. If it's higher than that, your needle's going to be off to the left a little bit. So you want to have it right there on 0, and then a standard stitch length for sewing garments would be between 2 and 3. Now if you're doing quilting, you want it a little bit shorter than that, but usually for just regular sewing, between 2 and 3 is just right. And then your stitch selector, you want to have that on A, which is going to be your straight stitch. Notice that the black stitches are available when you have your stitch length dial on the black area. The red stitches are going to be available when you switch it over to, or you turn it to the S1 or the red. And then these light gray stitches that are available in certain areas are available when you turn your dial to the S2. But in this video, we're just going to basically do straight stitch and zigzag, because that's what most of us use most of the time. So when you start sewing near the edge of your fabric, but not off the edge of your fabric. You want to make sure that you're sewing on fabric all the time. And then put your finger on those thread tails for the first 2 stitches or so, and that will help keep those loose thread tails from being pulled down in the machine. You don't want to jam or anything like that, so that helps prevent those. It's just a good habit to have. Then usually you want a back stitch at the beginning and at the end of your seam. So here's your back stitch lever. So I'm going to start sewing a little bit. Take a back stitch. And again, don't stitch off the edge of your fabric, just keep going. At this point, we want to start looking, it looks like I got it a little bit off. We want to, and if you do need to move your fabric, roll the hand wheel so that's peeking up a little bit. I'm going to move this over so it's right on the 5/8 inch seam line, right there. And that's where I'm going to be watching to do a 5/8 inch seam. You don't want to be staring at the needle, you want to be staring at where you want to line up your fabric. And then just take it nice and slow with the foot control. Just kind of get used to it. There we go. And get towards the end. Then you can press your reverse button again. And then roll your hand wheel so that take-up lever just peeks up. That means the stitch is completed and your needle is up. Raise your presser foot lever and cut your thread like that. This is going to give you a nice 5/8 inch seam allowance with both ends sealed using your back stitch. Okay, so what about using a zigzag? So to do a zigzag, we want to move our stitch selector to B. We also want to widen our stitch like that. Keep it still in the middle. Now, if you wanted to widen and narrow your zigzag but have it the same on one side, but maybe widen and narrow to the left, then you'd put your needle position in this position, or in that position if you wanted to widen it on the other side. But to widen and narrow your zigzag from the center outwards, have it on the center needle position. Okay, let's do a zigzag. I'm going to use 2 layers here. Again, I'm going to hang on to those threads for the first couple stitches, and you can do a back stitch if you want to. Now, if you want to check your stitches, let's say you wanted to see what that looks like without losing your place, roll your hand wheel so the needle's down in the fabric. Lift up your presser foot, turn it to the side. That's a little wider than I want it to be, so what I'm going to do, raise your needle out of the fabric once you put your presser foot down, and then I'm going to make this a little bit narrower and a little bit shorter, like that. And then, and remember, you're not pulling or pushing your fabric, you're only guiding it to get a even seam allowance or to stay on a line that you've drawn. And of course you can do a zigzag at the end. Just make it a habit of turning your hand wheel so that take-up lever peeks up. And there we go. We have a nice zigzag. Now, it does scrunch up here a little bit, and that's because it's such a wide zigzag on a fairly thin piece of fabric. If I had denim, it wouldn't do that as much. But also notice when I have a narrower zigzag, it doesn't scrunch up the fabric as much because the thread isn't pulling on the fabric as much. Okay. So I wanted to mention one other stitch that's really useful, and that's this one here, the triple stitch, which we access through S1. The triple stitch is going to give you 2 stitches forward and 1 stitch back. Now this piece of denim is pretty beefy. It's great for doing nice heavy jeans, but for that back crotch seam in jeans, and notice how that tends to get ripped out. Well, this is an excellent stitch to put in that, either for repairing jeans or if you're sewing pants to start with. This stitch, I've got it on the bias here, and part of that jeans seam in the back is going to be on the bias, and this is going to never rip out because it's got 2 stitches forward and 1 back, so the thread is kind of looped as it goes. But remember, this is hard to rip out. I mean, you can, but it's each stitch, so you want to make sure you have it where you want it to be. But that's a very useful one. This is also good for if you're doing a backpack or a bag and you want an extra strong seam, or just a bold-looking top stitch. That's great. So that's your overview for this machine. I hope you found this helpful. If you have, please give us a thumbs up. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. We have lots of other videos on this machine and on other machines here on our Montavilla YouTube channel. So keep watching. Thanks for watching today. Bye-bye.